Okay, we are back with the first segment of Chits for the 1800 turn, Great Battles of the American Civil War. Longstreet attacks from the 3 days of Gettysburg Deluxe. So, first set of chits coming out. You can see the chit draw here. Confederates had won the initiative, so they get the first chit. Hood continued the attack, followed by the Artillery Reserve, Richard Anderson's division, and Caldwell's division, and then Barnes, Confederate Artillery Reserve, Caldwell, and then McLaw's is going to be the next chit. And I left that out there just because I want to talk about that at the very end, because it's going to be, this is a critical turn for McLaw's, and I'll explain why towards the end. But let's see how this got on with the actual fighting itself, because it was quite interesting here, and I probably should have brought you in for it, but there was a lot to it, and it took a little bit of time. So I'll give you the summary here, and you can see that. So let's jump over to the map. All right, so here's the big map, big picture. The lines run roughly with Law over here, roughly up to here, over into here, still back over here for McLaw's, and then over here for Anderson, and so forth down to Seminary Ridge, capping off with Pegram down there. From the Union side, we've still got Schweitzer, we've got Barnes, we've got Ward, Ayers, Tilton back there, de Trobrand, the Artillery Reserve up in through here. We've got Graham barely holding on to the Peach Orchard, and then we've got Humphrey's division over here. We've got Caldwell's division over here as well. So that's where we are. This is with the 7 activations complete. So what happened with Hood? If I zoom in over here, let's take a look down and walk down the line, so you can see exactly what's going on here. And I'm gonna tilt you and focus you here a little bit so you can see. You can see Law's attack over here. So Law came up over here. You basically see Law right here and here and here. He's facing Schweitzer and part of Barnes, part of Vincent's brigade, right over in here. He was able to push back those skirmishers that have been slowing him down and get across here. Then he confronted Schweitzer's units, which I'd get around and set up over here. They had a little bit of firefight in here and a little bit of firefight in here. Both sides disordered. Confederates getting a little bit of the best of the Union, because the Union was disordered and they lost some steps over there. But the Confederates, the 15th Alabama here is disordered too, so they're going to have to recover. With the fighting with Vincent, we see the 48th Alabama right here. They're disordered. We've also got Vincent over here. He's back in good order, so they've exchanged some fire. Confederates taking the worst of it in here. 47th Alabama had also fired into here and got the worst of it. Law himself went in with the 4th Alabama and pushed back the 44th New York. Barnes had to come off of Little Round Top up here to help him out, because they were disordered, and they've subsequently rallied, but they've actually lost some steps. They're down to 5 out of 8, so they've only got 2 to spare before they go before they collapse. That's what I'm going to do. So this has been Law's situation. Right beside him is Benning. Benning has been able to push back the 4th Maine over here. They're pretty much wrecked at this point. We've still got Ward over here, and this is now becoming a big problem, because you see where Ward is. The rest of his command is all the way over here. So he is basically going to be out of command with his units. Fortunately, Barnes is still over there, but the 4th Maine here, they're down to 2 steps, so they're essentially wrecked and out of action. So this is kind of the start of the gap from Houck's Ridge, where Benning has opportunity here to push into here. Now, Law really needs to make more attempts at Little Round Top. They need to get a unit up into the Little Round Top victory hexes this turn. As part of a special condition, victory condition, that if they get somebody up on Round Top and they're contesting it, as well as they capture the peach orchard, then the game continues on. But if they don't, particularly capture the peach orchard, then it's an immediate Union minor victory. So this is going to be an interesting turn to see what happens, because both Law and McLaws, which again I'll talk about a little bit later, need to really step up and capture their objectives over there. Benning, I think, will support this. They'll try to hook around and hit the reserves trying to come up, particularly the rest of Vincent's brigade, as well as Tilton, because I think Tilton's going to need to commit over here. In fact, they tried to, because Barnes did get a activation. They tried to go into attack orders, but they failed, and they had to stay where they were. So they're kind of stuck there. So Tilton stayed where they were. Schweitzer was able to change, but Tilton was not. Vincent himself is just staying right there for now, but I think they're going to have to try to change the next activation once they get it. So back over to Benning over here. Benning has really pushed against Ward's other units. They've pushed back. The 17th Georgia over here has pushed farthest up Houck's Ridge and past Houck's Ridge, and really driven back the rest of his brigade. That's the 124th New York. Smith's other guns are here someplace. And then the units under Birney right here also in trouble, 86 New York, etc. They got pushed back by Robertson, which we'll talk about here in a second. But all of them have been divided from their commander, which is going to make this very tricky situation for them. Randolph is holding the Millerstown Road back here. He's got Winslow's guns pointed down the wheat field. So when they get a chance, they're going to blast over at Anderson's units over in here. But the big thing is Robertson has pulled himself together and pushed up here. Now they've got one unit of Detrobrand's still here, the 40th New York. They're in a refused flank position, but I'm not sure they're going to stay here, because you can see they're disordered. 3rd Arkansas is on their true flank over here. We've got the 4th Texas over here. We've got the 5th Texas down here. And then we've got the 8th Texas, 1st Texas, sorry, that's down here as well, looking to aim in that direction to go after the wheat field and take the eastern end of that, the southeastern end of that, as well as the rest of Houck's Ridge. And if they can do that, and then Benning can hook around like this, that'll free up Law a little bit to try to push for Round Top itself. You see, we've got the rest of Smith's batteries over here. They're going to disappear at the end of this turn, but they won't be treated for any type of victory conditions in this particular scenario. Then we've got Anderson over here. Anderson has pushed, basically knocked out Detrobrand's units that were in here, although the 17th Maine did make a valiant stand, and they're still in good order, so they're holding out over there. But Hall's battery, which I believe is somewhere over in this stack right here, this is Burling of it. Yeah, there's Hall. He is down to 1 gun. He was able to get out of there when the 59th Georgia moved up. He reacted and was able to retreat and get back out of there, but he did lose a gun in that action. So now we have Burling's units, which are technically flanked over here by the 59th Georgia, out in the air. We've got Thompson's guns here. They tried to shoot in here, get into a firefight, but they got the worst of it. They're disordered. They did disorder the 8th South Carolina of Kershaw, and have kind of knocked them out there a little bit. Let me bring you over here a little bit and tilt you down so you can see this, as I'm getting beyond my my zoomed in position here. So then we had some action, a little action over here. McLaw's hasn't moved yet, and this is where I'm going to talk about McLaw's right now. McLaw's is the next shit. And we've got everybody from McLaw's division going. Kershaw, Sims, Barksdale, and Wolford are all in line. They're all in attack. They're going to go right in to try to capture that peach orchard because they really need to get that peach orchard taken this turn. If not, they're going to lose the game. The little round top is important and is another factor in there. But if we can get the peach orchard, we'll be in good shape. I think they'll get the peach orchard and wheat field in there as well, and that will get them some sort of victory. The big things are getting up to Round Top or getting over to Seminary Ridge in the back there, and I'll show you those in a little bit once I zoom out. But this is the key focus for McLaw's over here. So we're going to try to get Wolford to go straight into Graham right here, right at the apex of the defensive line, to try to take most of those hexes. The Confederates do have a couple of these hexes so far. They did get into here, and they did get into here. You can see they need to push back over here and really just drive them back in here. But we've got this gun line over here, which is going to be tricky to crack. They're going to take some casualties on them. That's going to cause them some efficiency, in their attack later on. But I think they can roll up the line here a little bit. We can get Kershaw and Sims to get over in here. I think Anderson is going to have to move over here to capture the west side of the wheat field and push back any reinforcements that come up over there, because the Union does have reinforcements coming up, and we'll talk about there in a little bit. Actually, you can see one right there. There's Kelly from Caldwell's brigade. That's the Irish brigade right here. They've moved into this woods and positioning to potentially counterattack against a weakened Confederate assault. Right. The other big thing that's going to be happening here too is we are going to get over here to the left. We're going to get Richard Anderson's division moving, or they already have moved. Wilcox, Lang, Wright, and who am I missing? Oh yeah, then back over here we've got Mahone and Posey just off camera here. You'll see those when I zoom back out here a second. But the main line of attack, Wilcox, Lang, and Wright have pushed up over here looking to flank the Union right. And actually, I suppose I should tip you up, shouldn't I? Yes, that would be a good thing. So you can see what the Union line looks like. You can see they're up here. Now, Caldwell was positioned up here, spotted these guys coming up, sent Brooke and Zook over here to extend the line back towards the rest of the Second Corps. The rest of the Second Corps is up here with Gibbon and Hayes. Gibbon and Hayes are pretty much locked in there until the Confederates actually move units next to them. So they can't move. So their line is pretty much set. So that left a gap right here that Anderson was targeting for. And this is the gap that historically where Wright came through and actually made it up into the area right about in here, where he wrote in his after action report that they actually made it to Cemetery Ridge and were able to get up there. And subsequently, Lee heard that and thought the line was weakened, and hence we wound up with Pickett's charge. So they're going to angle over here. This time they're going to get some more resistance by Brooke and Zook instead of them going over to the wheat field to fight. Now that's going to have an impact, because over here now we've just got Kelly who is going to be coming over here. We do have Cross, who's kind of sitting here as a ultimate reserve. He could commit this way, he could commit this way. The difficulty with this is not going to be so much with this particular turn, because everybody's in command. It's going to be next turn. If we get into the 7 p.m. turn, then command is going to be a little bit difficult, because Caldwell is going to have to position somewhere around here. Kelly really can't commit any farther than he's at right now, unless he goes on his own, which don't really want him to do that this turn. Maybe next turn, but not this turn. So Caldwell is going to be a little bit stretched in terms of what's going on, but he's got to protect over here to prevent Wright and Lang and Wilcox from getting around Humphrey's left flank, or excuse me, right flank, and breaking in to Seminary Ridge. Meanwhile, Humphrey, you can see his line over here. That's Brewster and Carr They're pretty good. They're a pretty good line, although they're kind of brittle in here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when part of Wilcox and Barksdale's brigades hit those lines and get across there. But they've got a good two-line defense there, so they're going to need to be flanked to root them out. But again, that's not a big focus right now. The big focus again is here at the peach orchard, which is down a little bit. Let's refocus it over here, which is over in here, and Little Round Top, which is over here, which are going to be our main focuses for the fight for this particular turn. Although we will be going for other places, trying to push through the gap over here. There's just no real victory once they get the wheat field captured. There's no real need for victory, I should say, once you get the wheat field captured, and really the focus will become up here. Now, from the Union perspective too, the Union still has a lot of reinforcements coming in from the 5th Corps. You will see that we have both Burbank, Day from Ayres's division, as well as Crawford's 2 brigades of McChandless and Fisher, also poised to come in for reinforcements. So they can come over here and reinforce this center. And I'm thinking more Ayres reinforcing Little Round Top for counterattacks if the Confederates succeed in continuing to the next turn. The next segment of the 1800 turn has us with these chits that have come out: McLaws, Cabell, Hood, Artillery Reserve, Caldwell, Ayres, Humphreys. So this one you can see I titled McLaw's Attacks, and for good reasons, because he has really pushed forward with his division and pushed ahead here with it. So we'll take a look at here in a minute. We still have the overriding victory condition that if by the end of this turn we don't get Peach Orchard and at least contesting Little Round Top, the game ends, Union victory. So we've got to be totally cognizant of that. I'm going to focus in on what they're doing now in this turn to remedy that, as well as the long-term approach there as well. So let's take a look at the map. Okay, here we are back at the map. So here we can see the lines have moved quite a bit from the last segment that I did. Peach Orchard right here. This is now in Confederate hands. Okay, they have actually captured this. It was a heavy attack to get in there. And actually, let me just zoom you in here a little bit, and I will focus it in so you can see this. It was a very strong attack in here. Required all 4 brigades of McLaw's to orchestrate this capture. First off with Kershaw and Wolford. They were the key ones to push right in there. Wolford came up onto the northwest side, Semmes on the southeast side, excuse me, not Semmes, Kershaw on the southeast side, and we're able to push back Graham, who was holding that. You can see Graham is back here now. His brigade was hit heavily. A couple of units were actually routed. A couple more units, they've retreated back over here, and they're in a tough spot. Next, they rolled down the line, engaging with Barksdale to start pushing up the Emmitsburg Road. And here you can see they've engaged. Here's Barksdale right here, and he has actually engaged up near the Sherfy farm at this point. Sherfy farm, or is this? No, Crinkle farm, sorry. Crinkle farm. For Sherfy farm, they already took. That's what I thought. And they're up there engaging at that point after 2 a.m.s that they had. So they've made some good progress up through here. We also head to the southeast. The rest of Kershaw's and Semmes's brigades push over here and break that gun line. You notice that gun line is now missing, And we actually have one one unit here abandoned. There's other abandoned units in here, which are under the stacks, which I'm not going to move, but you can see the blue behind them there. So they've broken through that gun line. A lot of guns lost this turn. Most of McGilvery's units were lost. Ames was lost. Thompson, Bigelow, 3rd Corps guns, Buckland, Clark, Smith, the rest of Smith's guns were lost in this particular attack. So quite a few guns were lost, particularly up here on this turn, and then Smith lost the rest of his guns back there. So it's been a heavy attack, but they have the Peach Orchard. That's one of our criteria for continuing past the 6 p.m. turn. So we've actually have that in place for us. Moving onward over here to Hood's division, Anderson has moved up. He actually has tried to attack Detrobrand, Burling, and you see Kelly has now moved up over here. Caldwell has shifted Kelly down in here to boost things up. We do have Cross just a little ways back. He could be up here if needed. We did this because Caldwell activated twice in this particular segment, while Ayers has not done anything. Well, they had one, but they're kind of stuck back coming over the Millerstown Road near Little Round Top, and we'll see that when I zoom out. But Kelly is now up here to engage and try to bolster the line because Detrobrand is pretty beat up and retreating. Burling took heavy damage over here, although he's recovered 2 of his regiments over here. 3rd Regiment is back here, and a 4th Regiment routed over here. So Burling is been heavily engaged. We do have 1 gun left of McGilvery's, which is Hart. They're in there as well. Oh, the other thing is McGilvery was actually wounded, so that's why you don't see him on the board, which kind of precipitated the retreat back out of there. So a heavy attack across here. Union has not been able to do much, as I said, because the chip pulls were McLaws, Caldwell, Hood, Artillery Reserve, Caldwell, Ayers, and then finally Humphrey, which is over here, and Burling, activated last. And with that, Carr over here has adjusted his line a little bit, doing some refusing flanks to take on Anderson's attack, Robert Anderson's attack over here. Also changed to face Barksdale's attack over here. They're going to try to be a speed bump. They're not going to be able to hold, I don't think, over here. And hopefully that will allow Brewster with their line. They adjusted here a little bit, actually brought up the 120th New York and extended them. And then now there's 3 regiments behind ready to plug any gaps to try to hold over here. Because I think with the Confederate attack over here, it's not going to be so much into this area, and they need to hold out, but it's going to be a little bit beyond back up here towards where the other half of Caldwell's units have extended the line from Brewster back up to Cemetery Ridge, because this is this little segment here and beyond is the target of Anderson's attack. So they are going to be coming up through, let me just zoom this out so you can see it a little bit better. You can see they're kind of aiming here to go into here. Now I doubt they're going to get very much in here because they've got to go through Zuckenbrook, plus the reserves of Gibbon and Hayes are up here as well. So even if they do get here, they're going to get counterattacked pretty hard. And I don't see them getting here until the 7 p.m. turn if we go to 7 p.m. So Caldwell making kind of a split call, sending half the units over here, the other half here, and you can see Cross, other quarter over here, but then Cross is sitting back here in reserve. Most likely he's going to engage up this way. This is pretty solid for now, but he could shift that way if need be. Okay, so that kind of shows us what's at Emmitsburg, Peach Orchard, Wheatfield over here. But now if we look to the southeast of the Wheatfield, that's this area over here, we see quite a bit of action and a little bit more balanced action over here, meaning that both Union and Confederate have been able to attack, counterattack, hold out, and kind of go from there. So we had Robertson up here move forward. They were actually able to push out the, which one was it? 5th Michigan? No, 40th New York, right there. They retreated, and they were the last holdout in the wheat field over there. Robertson was able to push them out and advance up over here, and then Anderson, of course, came over here to extend his right flank over to Robertson's left flank. Then we had 1st Texas recovering. They were disordered again and needed to recover back up over here. We did have the 3rd Arkansas get spirit of the charge and go down here to go after Ward and the 4th Maine. They came down there and were successful to push them back. They retreated back to Sykes, and they've moved into Plum Run there to kind of disrupt Barnes and Vincent's units coming up on the other side of Plum Run into the Valley of Death there by Plum Run Valley between Houck's Ridge and Little Round Top. So he's kind of a little extended over here, but we'll try to get 1st Texas up over here as quickly as possible so that Ayers, particularly Weed, doesn't try to slide in there and counterattack and push them back. The tricky part to this has been Ayers did activate, but you can see there's a little bit of a logjam here. We've got Tilton sitting on the road over here, which is blocking them from coming in through here and attacking the 17th Georgia. Also, they're blocked over here by the remnants of both the Trobrand and Birney from coming up here to counterattack into the wheat field. So they've been kind of stuck. The only thing that they did is moved up this unit, the 140th New York, up into here to threaten the 3rd Arkansas advance into the Plum Run marsh there. So they've just extended the line over here. Vincent has not come out yet. I expect to see him pretty soon, but that'll be a big fight over in here. Meanwhile, with rest of Hood's, Benning and Law had to do a little bit of recovery this turn. A lot of them were disordered. This one were disordered. The other one, another one had to move up, so they're rare. And I'm missing one here someplace. Oh yeah, he's up here. This one, the 17th Georgia, has pushed themselves into almost the Millerstown Road and cutting off the retreat of Ward and Birney. Division leader Birney up here is taking command of Houck's Ridge, but they're in a precarious position because they're all by themselves. And I think we're going to have to turn Benning in to attack Little Round Top because we need to contest Little Round Top. That's what I was saying before. There needs to be this needs to be contested over here by the end of this term, and we've already had 2 Hood chits come out, and Hood has, how many does he have? He's going to have 4 chits. Yeah, he's going to have 4 chits for this turn, so he's used half his chits. Now let's take a look at this a little bit closer. If I zoom in and look at this action here, you will see that down a little bit. There we go. Oh, up a little bit. Come on. There we go. You'll see that Benning is back here and extended over towards the end of Houck's Ridge. Law is really the only one poised to attack here. Now he's got Schweitzer's units blocking here, as well as the remnants of the 2nd U.S. sharpshooters who have just been, slowing them down. Schweitzer is not a very great unit. They've taken fire. They've disordered here. They've disordered here. They've got 1 good unit here. And Schweitzer has 1 unit with him up here, roughly about where Chamberlain's Knoll is today. And he's holding out. Law over here, like I said, they had to rally, so they didn't really do anything this turn, but now they're poised with good order units to push up in here. The other kicker is we've got Vincent. Although Vincent's not on Little Round Top, he's in a good position to provide mischief to prevent reinforcements coming up over here. You can see he's sitting right in the middle here. He doesn't have anybody directly behind him But we've got Barnes over here, who's taken direct command of this regiment. And then we have the 20th Maine back here, and then we have the 83rd Pennsylvania over here, with Hazlitt's battery over here. Hazlitt's battery's been kind of stuck and hasn't been able to get into action. I didn't get him up the hill because it's nearly impossible to get him up there in a decent amount of time. So I figured Schweitzer's holding this as best he can, and we'll see how Law and Benning, if we can get them over there, can push right in this particular area here, because you notice this is a victory hex here. That's where we need to go. We've got one here already. I've got some units over here that can swing around. He can position for an attack, and then hopefully springboard into the top over there. And then we'll see if they're kind of locked in combat here. I may call that contested, because there really is no definition of contested in the victory conditions. They just said control allows to occupy specific geographic hexes, which, I guess strictly reading, you could say, they have to have somebody in one of those hexes, to be contesting it. But if they're pushing here and getting close to it, I may keep it going for the sake of, playing out the entire scenario and seeing what happens, because they do have some more that I want to mention about too that are coming out. I'd like to see how that plays out. So that's going to be the real big thing over here for the next segment that I show you. So stay tuned for that on over there as well. Now, the other thing, as I was just mentioning, that we have going on, if I zoom this way back out, and let's tip this up from the Union perspective, and let's go this way back over there and up here. You can see the Union reserves coming in. We got the rest of Ayer's division. We have Burbank and we have Day moving down here. And they're in a good position to be in a supportive or potentially counterattack position for the Little Round Top from the east side coming up this way. It's equally as steep, it's equally as tough, but they could potentially come in here and fill in the gap if Schweitzer fails and retreats off of there. We also have way back here, we have Crawford, who will be moving up here a little bit later, and they can get up the road and again be more units to put in front or counterattack on Little Round Top. And as I said, Vincent is not counted out. He's being a good blocking piece right now, but he could counterattack from the western face over here as well. So it's going to be a tough haul for Law's attack when we get going with it most likely in the next segment. I don't know how the chit draw is going to be, but the next segment could be very interesting. There's still a lot of Union chits out there. I think it's about even with chits left. Yeah, it's 8-8. So we'll see how it goes for the chit draws. This time, we're going to be titling it Hood Attacks, because this is a big round for them to try to push to get Little Round Top. It's been a struggle over there, and it still is here, and we'll see that here in a minute. But first off, here's the activation stream. We had Barnes, Artillery Reserve, Union Artillery Reserve, Union Artillery Reserve, Richard Anderson, Ayers, Richard Anderson, Ayers, and Hood finally. So that's Hood's third. All right. So we're going to focus on that a little bit. I'm going to leave that to the last part, seeing it was the last chit that was drawn, and talk about Ayers. I'll talk about Richard Anderson and Ayers first, and then come over to Hood. So let's go take a look at the map. Bring you over here. And here we go. Here's the big picture at the moment. You can see the lines are still moving. A little bit more movement here, a Little Round Top, and I'll zoom in on this. Not much over here in the center. That's quieted down here. But then we have Richard Anderson's attack over here. So let's take a look and focus in on that here. So here's Richard Anderson's attack. We had Wilcox down here. We had Lang right next to him, right, And then we have Posey over here with this skipped activation shit on here. I am using Mahone, the optional row for Mahone, so they've started to move up over here. But you can see this echelon has moved up, crossing the Emmetsburg Road up here. Posey, right, unopposed up there. But we have Lang and Wilcox slamming into Carr's main line of resistance, just above where Barksdale was attacking. They came up, pushed back Carr's regiments, 1st Massachusetts here, these other regiments here, kind of bent them back. There's still some artillery. We've got Tidball's artillery over here, but now they're behind the 1st Massachusetts. Wilcox hit here, Lang hit over here, push these guys back. We do have Zook right there holding a 2nd line. Wright is coming up to attack that. He initially attacked Zook's 140th Pennsylvania right there. They were rebuffed, pushed back, and they're disordered right here. So they're going to have to recover. The rest of his lines hooked around there. Posey has moved up, still fresh. And we see the guns back here still popping away at the guns on Cemetery Ridge as well. All right, so that was really Wilcox, kind of taking some of the pressure off the middle and kind of making Hancock and Caldwell think about how they're going to stop them over there. So that'll be an interesting fight as that goes along. 5th Corps has moved up into position, and now we have Day over here. We have Burbank coming in over here. We have Schweitzer still up here. We'll talk about the combat here in a minute when I zoom in. But they've moved up over here. Ayres is kind of stopped right here with Weed. I think Ayres in the next turn is going to come over to command these 3 and leave Weed over here, because the focus is really going to be on this area over here, not so much over here with the attacks. So he's going to come over there and try to command that. Schweitzer was hit by Law over here, Law's regiments, and we'll talk about the details here when I get to Law. So he's in kind of a little tough shape over here. He's got a lot of disorganized units, but he's still holding the top of Little Round Top. Barnes over here, he got hit pretty bad over here. Both Barnes here, or Vincent here and here. The 16th Michigan for Vincent was routed. They got cut off and basically lost all their strength points. Or not routed, actually eliminated, because they lost all their strength points. Vincent himself was captured, so he'll be off the board, and a replacement will be coming in on the next turn, if we have a next turn. And Benning has been able to push up over here against the 20th Maine. See, they've disorganized here. Schweitzer's unit underneath him here. The 32nd Massachusetts is disorganized. And you see the 9th back here is also disorganized and low ammo. So there's been quite a bit of fighting on the Union side to hold off the Confederates. That's not to say the Confederates haven't done their share of fighting or their share of combat and taken their share of combat. There we go. I wanted to zoom it way in for you. You can see over here, Law has tried to push here, tried to attack with with his regiments here, 48th Alabama, and then Hood has come up because you can see they're disordered, and is trying to help him recover them for the next activation, because that's really going to be it. If they don't get up into that next hex right there, that's going to be it for the game. Now, they've been able to push and get those hexes, but it's been costly. Disorders, strength losses, and more importantly, fatigue. You notice that Law is now fatigue 1 and Benning is fatigue 2, which is going to make it tough for the Union, or for the Confederates, to keep pushing forward. But they've got to. They've got one more activation with this turn. They may be able to do it. We'll have to see. Meanwhile, on the bottom in the valley here, 15th Georgia, 4th Alabama, and 3rd Arkansas are teaming up against the Barnes's unit here, the 44th New York, trying to push them out so they can get around there and try to support the attack over here. There is a weak flank for the Confederates over here. The one unit that was attacking over here was the 44th Alabama. They failed over here and they routed, so they got off the map. So this is kind of an open flank as they push for the summit of Little Round Top. So that's where we are, and if I zoom this back out, you'll see that it's quite the fight going on here, both for Little Round Top and Wheatfield, Emmetsburg Road, Peach Orchard, everything. But Peach Orchard is pretty solidly in Confederate control, so that's good. Really got to get the Round Top over there with it. We've got about 8 or 9 chits left to go. Yeah, 9 chits left to go. The last part here is these activations came out next. We still have another batch to go because a couple other came in, and I'll explain here in a minute why a couple more came in. So we had Birney, Humphrey, allowing them to recover a little bit here, and we'll see that. Richard Anderson, which was significant, we'll see that, and that's why I've titled this one more of Richard Anderson attacks. Gibbon, Birney again, McLaw's again, he had to recover a little bit, but we'll see that. And then finally Gibbon again. And while I'm here, you can see Gibbon and Gibbon, they weren't put in originally. That's because Richard Anderson's troops have gotten close enough now to trigger them to come on the or start activating. So those 2 chits came in automatically when they came in. So that added actually 2 more. It actually added theirs and Hayes, who is still in the cup, on there as well. So we'll have a couple more. That's why we're going to go a little bit longer with one more session. So let's flip over now and take a look at this session and see how things have occurred. So from the Union perspective, not too much change from their perspective. A little bit over here, you can see the sharpshooters starting to infiltrate around here, try to do something here, but Hood only has 1 more AM. It's really going to come down to that attack right there once that AM comes out. Birney and Trobrand and Graham tried to recover units over here. They were kind of successful. They had some failures on there and lost some more strength points, but generally they're holding the line over here. We also had Humphreys, which rearranged his line a little bit. Now it's been disrupted here a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a minute, per Richard Anderson's attack. But they're still holding this flank, this right flank over here, along coupled back in with Caldwell's troops of Zook and Brooke. Back over in this area over here. So we can see Brooke over here, and then Zook over here, and then Brooke over there. Brooke's troops are here. Zook's was here, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But that's been generally from the Union perspective, just trying to hold the line from the release perspective. And Gibbon has moved up over here, and actually, so you can see they've been released because over here they got close enough to him and got released into the cup. Same thing over here with Hayes. So they're all released. So what Gibbon has done is come up here and come around to the edge of the rise of Cemetery Hill to strengthen up the guns. Guns are going to be the primary defense, I think, because they're going to approach fire really quickly if they approach here. We've got guns here, we've got guns here, and over here, and back up here as well. So there's a lot of guns over there to try to hold them off. So that's kind of imposing for the Confederates, given that Wright's brigade is engaged over here, which just leaves Posey over here and Mahone, who's coming up behind him, to potentially go after Cemetery Ridge with Hayes and Gibbon, holding off up there. They do have some artillery support back here, but it's going to be a tough fight. We'll see if it gets that far, because again, remember, round top is the key on this. The other thing that's important is if I tilt this down a little bit, you'll see over here, Lang, Wilcox, and Wright's attacks have punched in the line over here. You can see Carr has been broken and pushed back. They lost a couple of routes and have been pushed back. You can see Wilcox is now up here. This 114th Pennsylvania is in trouble. They've got to figure out a way to get out of there because Barksdale potentially will attack there. And I'll talk about Barksdale here in a few. But the big thing here was the Floridians up here with Lang's brigade was able to push over here and actually attack Zook, who was up here, not in the wheat field like they were historically, and actually rout 3 of the smaller regiments. So Brooke now only has 1 regiment here, or Zook, excuse me, only has 1 regiment over here that's left. Most likely he's going to go, well, not most likely, he will go combat ineffective at the end of the turn because all 3 of the other regiments have routed. We still have Brooke, as I mentioned before, in good position to receive any of Wright's attacks over here and potentially Lang's attacks over here. Again, they're essentially a speed bump for this whole thing. It's just so that they can't get to Seminary Ridge because time is running out. It's already 6 p.m. We've only got 1 more turn, maybe, for this. So they can be sacrificed over here. But the bigger sacrifice is that the reinforcements placed in the center are not going to be there for the wheat field. So the only reinforcements coming down from Caldwell is Kelly, and holding off over here, potentially by an attack if there's a next turn, holding out some of the field over here. Now I think next turn Anderson's going to try to move up to capture a little bit more, and Robinson's going to try to move up to capture a little bit more over here as well. But the main focus, as I said, is going to be back over here with Law and Benning. Now, I mentioned about McLaw's. They took a very conservative turn. They needed to do a lot of recoveries. There's a lot of disordered units, particularly with Kershaw and Semmes. They had to recover. Wolford, the same thing. He had a lot of recoveries that needed to occur over here as well. So they took a chance to do that. Barksdale was the only one who had a chance to go into an attack, but I held him off only because I needed to move up troops to support him. He only had 1 unit engaged on the 114th right there. I wanted to see if I could get them closer because if they engage, if they're going to shock, they will incur a fatigue. So I was trying to hold off on fatigue as long as possible, seeing that the 114th and these guys were going nowhere, and really what Barksdale is doing here is just holding them there so they don't sneak around and try to reinforce back at Seminary Ridge over there. They're holding the line around Sickles, back here with Birney's troops to the other side. So that's why they're there, and it'll be interesting for this last Hood chit that comes out because everybody is going to be moving, one way or another, and the same with the McLaws. We've already used 3 of them. We're going to have 1 more, and Barksdale and Wolford can activate with those 2 chits with McLaws, and then of course the same with him. So we have these chits were drawn: Hayes, McLaws, Birney, Confederate Artillery Reserve, Crawford, and Hood. 2 key ones here coming out are going to be Hood. Very critical for him to potentially take something on Little Round Top, and McLaws to try to push on his success over there. The 2 Hayes chits, Crawford and Birney, just allow for more reinforcements to get placed, and that's what we're gonna take a look at first to see the Hayes coming up, potentially a little bit more defense on Cemetery Ridge, and Birney trying to reposition some of the sharpshooters, as well as Crawford, moving up to help out. So let's jump over to the map, and first we'll take a look at Second Corps up here on Cemetery Ridge. You've got Cemetery Ridge running across here. Anderson's troops coming up. Up here, way to the north, you see Hayes positioning his troops to cover here, and then potentially to get Carroll to come down here as a backstop for Gibbon and potentially Caldwell, who's down here. So really very strong defense there on Cemetery Ridge. With that, we still have Zook and Brooke out front here. Brooke is in tough shape, but we'll see how that plays out with potentially the next turn. So that was that one. So now let's take a look at how McLaw's fared down here. So moving to the west a little bit, because actually the bottom half is west, top half is north. You can see McLaw's over here. Now with McLaw's, Semmes and Kershaw, who is right here, their units couldn't activate because they only had 3 activations this turn. But Barksdale and Wolford could continue their attacks. So first off, Barksdale came this way, and let's zoom in on this a little bit closer so you can see the units. Barksdale came around to continue the attack on Brewster. First off, they overrun the 114th Pennsylvania here of Graham and pushed on this way. Then the 17th Mississippi, and then the 13th Mississippi pushed in to attack the guns in here. That was Phillips guns. He had some 3-inch rifles sitting over here. They charged up against them there. The canister fire was ineffective. They were able to break through, capture the guns, and push back some of Brewster's units over here. Meanwhile, Wolford, he actually got his units up here and opened fire on Sickles' headquarters. The units there that were with him managed to rout a couple of those units and retreat a couple more. Sickles had to retreat back to Trossel Farm back here. And then also Wolford had recovered some units back here. So now the line over here looks like this. You can see Anderson coming this way, curving here where Barksdale is coming, back over to Wolford's men, and then back over to Semmes over here. We've got Kershaw recovering over here, which then attached to Anderson right over here. So they're pushing through hard. Now, I don't think they're going to be a decisive factor in terms of capturing anything but the peach orchard, but it does put pressure on the wheat field just to the southeast. Let me zoom out on that so you can see that right here. And it will put some pressure here on the center to, keep a line going so they don't break through to the south. Now, it doesn't completely free up to the northeast, this area, because you see there's a lot of units in here. So Anderson's going to have to push hard over there. Barksdale will push from this way as well to try to get up to Cemetery Ridge. It's tough. There's only one more turn left, so potentially one more turn left, I should say, with it. So it's going to be a hike for them to get on there. I'm continuing to move along over to what became the real interesting piece of it here. As you can see, we've got the wheat field. That didn't change much with Hood's activation. Anderson stayed where they are. Didn't really have much to push on there. Saved them from getting a little bit of fatigue, because fatigue is making a heavy presence now, particularly on Hood's division. Trying to keep Anderson in good shape. We've got Robinson's Texans coming up here, push back Birney here a little bit, and they've actually accumulated some fatigue. That's their fatigue right there. So they've got some fatigue. He actually came across to help support the attack on Little Round Top. Over here, had some good effort over here as well. But the big story, moving across over here and upward, let's go up, is this attack up here on Little Round Top. So we head down here, Vincent's brigade array down here, 20th Maine here, the 44th Pennsylvania over here. Barnes was over there helping out with everything there too. We had Sykes over in this area trying to hold out too here. Both Benning and Law were pushing hard against it. Benning, fatigue played heavy role on Benning. Benning tried to attack first. Fatigue played a big deal against this. You can see he's now up to fatigue 3. He actually had 2 units rout because of the attacks, or loss in psychic disorder over here. Luckily, it didn't cause any other units to rout around him, but he had 2 units rout, so he's only down to 2 units here and here, 2 regiments for his brigade. The other 2 are routed away. So you can see over here it's pretty weak. They did not break the 20th over here. They did push back Barnes over here with Robertson's help, and they did take Hazlitt's guns that were down here in the valley, trying to hold them off. But you do see that you've got Ayres aligned all back here. You've got Tilton back here as well, kind of holding a backstop against them. Then we come over to Law. Now what happened with Law is he jumped over to this stack. Hood went over to this stack over here trying to push the 20th Maine. Failed again. So they had to retreat and took some damage. Hood went with them. So Hood's now back here. That's not a bad thing because that'll help potentially with next turn's command, keeping some more, definitely Robertson, Benning here. Anderson is probably out of command, but that'll be for next turn. Big thing was Law coming over here and pushing against Schweitzer's units. There was a little exchange from the sharpshooters before that, but it wound up being really no effect. Then they charged up the hill to crest over, pushing back this 32nd Massachusetts. They were disordered, pushed them back and actually collapsed them, as you could see. Took that hex, so they're actually in there, and was able to capture the hex. So there will be one more turn in this particular scenario for my playthrough. This was the key hex here. They had to take this by the end of this particular turn. This was the last chit. It was the last attack of this particular turn, and they were able to take it. So that fulfills capturing the peach orchard to the northwest and contesting Little Round Top by actually capturing 1 hex over here. Now, contesting is if you didn't capture it, I was gonna see try to figure out what contesting really meant from there, because could they be on the base of Little Round Top? Could they be near Little Round Top? I wasn't quite sure of that. That's a little vague in terms of the description, but it will continue on. Problem is, if we look to the north east, you can see we have a whole bunch of Union units of Burbank and Day coming down and look like they're going to sweep over to the left over here. We still have some of Schweitzer's units over here, kind of orphaned from his command, but they're still in here blocking. They can easily get out of the way and potentially hit him back. The other problem we have is Law has now accumulated the 2nd step of fatigue. So his units in there, they are disordered, they are fatigued, they're in tough shape to try to hold off. So they're going to have to do some recovery and kind of hold their ground. The bigger thing, if I zoom out and take a look at what's around him from the Confederate side, there's not much. Benning, fatigue level 3. He's going to get a -2, +2, depending upon the rolls that he gets. Roberson, he's over here now. He's at fatigue 1. The rest of his units are over here. He's going to have to pull. 1st Texas is heading over, but all he's got is the 3rd Arkansas underneath him there to hold out. So these are the only things over there, and there's nothing behind them. There's no reserves behind them. So I'm not sure how they can hold out, if they can do that. The better thing, and the more likely thing that's going to happen, is down here in the wheat field. Wheat field's still contested. You can see there's some hexes here around Kelly's units, Randolph's units, and everybody here that are still in Union control. You can see we've got Anderson's units over here. They can push up and capture some more, so there's a potential of getting the wheat field. Plus with McLaw's right here, Semmes can move over this way. Kershaw can move over that way, and potentially take that. And that will give some sort of Confederate victory. So there's going to be some movement over here. From the Union perspective, they can still send some of Second Corps. Cross is available as reserve. Kelly's in there, still in good shape. Birney is pretty racked up. We do have Tilton over here as well. The potential can help. And then doubtful they'll get into the battle, but it's always just interesting to see them over there. We have Crawford coming down from the north over here. Apologize for the camera. It's acting up here a little bit with the software options. But he's coming in to go down onto the Taneytown Road over here and potentially come in to help out with with Little Round Top, or in the middle here, more importantly in the middle here with the Second Corps, and potentially down the wheat field. But he is far away, and it's going to be a little bit tough for him to get there. If I zoom back out, that's probably a better way for you to see it. There he is up there. So you can see he can come up and provide some sort of backstop. So that's where we stand. The end of the 6 p.m. turn. We will be continuing on to the 7 p.m. turn. And I've highlighted all the different areas of the attack. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching this. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Hopefully you're liking this. This has been